When Rodri returns, I want to then judge Manchester City. Because until that moment against Arsenal, went down with the injury, this team right here was... Nobody was having any question marks. There was no question marks in terms of at all as to who they were and what they were about. They were going to contend on all fronts and everything.
Liverpool have done so much in the transfer market, already champions of the Premier League. So who is coming in to compete with them? Here a look at the summer business done by both Manchester City and Arsenal. Arsenal with Gyökeres and Zubimendi and Madueke. You think those are three nailed-on starters? Tijani Reinders, a terrific addition in midfield. Ryan Aït-Nouri from left back, one of the best creative players in the world. And Ryan Cherki, James Trafford, a goalkeeper, British transfer record coming in from Burnley. Of course, a former Manchester City academy product. And if you look at City, you can even go back to the business they did in January, bringing in players like Omar Marmoush. So the question that we're now asking, JD, is, are these two teams genuine contenders for the Premier League title next season, given how good Liverpool were last season, given what they've added, and in some ways the improving that both of these teams have to do, certainly in terms of their points return?
Chris, I want to follow on your word. Contenders is the right word there. So they are contenders. They are definitely challengers. I do believe, though, they are chasing Liverpool at this point because you can't go against the champions, and they are improving somehow on their squad. But I like the business that both clubs have done. They both focused on what I feel like they needed to do. Man City needed a whole revamp. They needed a fresher, newer, more energetic style that was going to meet Pep's demands and his system. And Arsenal was more focused. They knew key areas in terms of which they needed to upgrade. They knew that they needed a centre midfielder. They knew they needed to add another centre midfielder in terms of for depth, a centre-half in terms of just depth and the quality there. And, of course, what they've been clamouring out for the last, 5 or 6 years? A number 9, someone to put the ball in the back of the net. And they feel like, we're looking at their business, they've done it all. But this right here is grim reaping for Arsenal. Second. So how do you turn around and elevate yourself to the next stage? What do you think about the move so far?
Well, I mean, I think Arsenal, in terms of if you go into a window with a plan, they've executed it, and then executed by August the 1st. What more do they have to do in the transfer market? I think they're done, unless someone comes in and throws around an incredible amount of money to go and buy one of their players, and then you think about replacing them. But I think they're done with their transfer business. They've done everything that they needed to do. For Manchester City, though, I still think that puzzle is coming together. We just showed you in terms of first and second place finishers. They go from 91 points, top of the Premier League, to out of the picture and needing to qualify for the Champions League. Do you think that with this group of players that they've added, together with the players they added in January, together with the players, with Rodri coming back from injury, that City are there, that City are genuine contenders again?
You spoke about the one key component, Rodri's return. So you have to almost add Rodri like he's a new signing onto this list. And when you're signing arguably the best 6 or holding midfielder in the world, it adds a completely new dimension. I still think there's enough element and quality and experience in that team to turn them around, especially when you start seeing them line up. Ilkay Gundogan is not on this list. No. That shows you the depth in which they have. Jack Grealish, whether he stays or he goes, is still a player that they can bring in. So when I start looking at the squad depth and the way that Pep has, I would say, elevated certain areas of his pitch, I just believe that they definitely will be back in the title contention. You're not going to see what you saw last year. Last year was a revamp, a redemption year, an opportunity to turn around and say, let's have a hard pause, let's let some of the older legs leave, and now we can bring in some fresh legs who are going to understand my system straight away.
But we wouldn't have thought that going into last season, and I wonder if a year of them struggling, getting knocked out so comprehensively in the Champions League by Real Madrid, now has you feeling like this isn't the almighty Manchester City. This was a team that, going into last season, had just won the Premier League again, had won the Champions League the year before that, and they were the team that were the constant giants. And now it seems like Liverpool have assumed, at the very least, that sort of fear factor that other teams will be feeling about playing the best team in the Premier League. Can they regain some of that? Are City able to kind of reassert themselves as the dominant team, not just one of the best teams in England?
I think we'll all admit that the first time during the Pep era, while he's been in the Premier League, that this was the first time that teams actually started to say, OK, we know what to do against Manchester City. We'll sit in deep, hit you on the transition, and see how quickly some of those players can return in terms of their defensive shape. They struggled last year in the transition. How many goals they conceded on a counter-attack? How many teams would go to the Etihad and feel like, we don't have to just get 1 point here, we can get 3 if we do this right. But Pep's smart enough. He's won trophies in pretty much all of the domestic leagues around Europe. He's one of the most accomplished managers of all time. This guy is going to understand that that happened. He knows in the middle of a season that I won't be able to revamp that. But what can I do to turn around and transition that? I think that's why you see Matheus Nunes become a fullback. You spoke about Ryan Aït-Nouri as well. Yeah. He's already become a dynamic fullback and doesn't struggle in the transition. The legs, though, moving Vardio into the centre. Diaz, of course, the established centre-half there. When Rodri returns, I want to then judge Manchester City. Because until that moment against Arsenal, went down with the injury, this team right here was... Nobody was having any question marks. There was no question marks in terms of at all as to who they were and what they were about. They were going to contend on all fronts and everything. You take the best player of any team, they will return in a very different dynamic. And I think right now we need to give them some grace because Rodri's return will turn around and definitely elevate this team to another dynamic.
I will say it might have been papering over cracks. It might have been Rodri covering for some of the other things, and we'll see if that rebuild that's happened around him will be effective. Moving on to Arsenal now, and we kind of talked about the transfer business that they've done. You said it was precise, it was surgical. They got what they needed to do done. Is there any element to this team that you feel like could use some improving, or this is the area of question going into next season that maybe they solve with players or maybe they solve with internal improvement?
Well, I was speaking with the graphics team earlier and I was determined to make sure they put Kai Havertz into this team because I think Kai Havertz is still an X factor. I still remember when he came into Chelsea and the hype that was around this young man and the transfer fee that came with him, and people will still say, is he finding his feet? Mikel Arteta seems to be getting the best out of Kai Havertz in the right positions, and I think this second striker position is where he will get not only his freedom, but more goals. You add now Victor Gyökeres, who will lead the line. You know exactly what you're going to get with him.
There's a player, though, missing, though, from this midfield. That's Martin Zubimendi.
Of course.
Who Arsenal brought in the summer.
How do you fit them all in? And this is what Mikel has to turn around and do. He has to add balance to this team. I do believe there will be important moments where you see Zubimendi. He will start, he will dictate, he'll play in that resistor role, and he will do exactly what Arteta has done, and of course what Pep has done in his career as well. But this right here, I think, is a team that goes out and wins, because what did Arsenal struggle with last year? Goals.
Goals, chances.
Final third. So moving maybe Martin Odegaard to a deeper position or even two attacking midfielders there and you have four across, I think it adds another layer. They need goals. They need to believe that they're going to hurt teams in the final third. And you need players that's going to get into the box, and Kai Havertz is one of those.
So let's ask the big question then. Do you feel like one of these two teams is a genuine contender to go and win the championship? Do you think that one of these two teams will be winning the Premier League? And if they don't, who finishes higher?
Are you asking me from my heart or are you asking me from my bias? I don't believe... If you're asking me from my head, I'm being truthful right now. If Liverpool signed Alexander Isak, which we are seeing developing all of the time, and that's an if, it doesn't matter what either of these teams do. It doesn't. Because that will be the most complete team we've seen in the Premier League probably since the Man City team of 18, 19 and 20 onwards. But what I will say is, looking at both of these two squads, they are good enough, definitely, to win. It's not just the starting 11s that you're seeing here, it's the players that are missing on both of these two teams, respectively, that will be coming off of the bench and adding pressure to those players to turn around and deliver. But what we need to see is an element of consistency. Madueke, how consistent can you be? Jeremy Doku, how consistent can you be?
Yes.
We already know what we're seeing from certain other players.
Even Lewis Skelly is a young player. Gets a lot of credit as a young player, but you got to take the step forward to be in a championship-winning team. You
already know your sophomore season is completely different to your season when you first come in as a freshman, because everybody will know exactly, oh, the hype around him, he did well for England, he did well for Arsenal, but people are noting your game now. So how can you adapt to the next level of people actually understanding how to expose you? That's all part of his experience, and that's all part of this team as well. They're going to grow and they're going to develop, but at the same time, neither of them, I think, are even close to a potential Liverpool team.
With Isak.
With Isak.
With Isak. And even the current Liverpool team is obviously brilliant. Chelsea, I think also some of their fans might be yelling at the television going, where are we in this conversation? We'll obviously talk about you plenty over the course of the summer.